Päivi, thank you so much for coming on. I thought Finland was a liberal country that believed in freedom of speech. So how could you be charged under war crimes legislation?
I have to say that this has been a big surprise also for me. I have been 28 years in public life in Parliament, but what has happened now during 4 years, it has been absurd. I have been twice in Helsinki District Court. I have been in police station interrogated about biblical issues, what Bible tells about humanity and sexuality. In Finland, we have the constitution. We have, in principle, we have freedom of speech and freedom of religion. We have also long roots in Christianity in Finland, and this happened in our country. So I think that it could happen anywhere.
And when you quoted those lines from the Bible, you were objecting to the church in Finland celebrating Pride because you thought that the church had no biblical right to do that. Did you get any pushback from the church in Finland? Did they mind that you were quoting the Bible?
In fact, it was the leadership of our church who supported this Pride event, and it was a shock to me. So, of course, they didn't give support to my Twitter posting. So the Archbishop has said that they think that it is okay that this case is investigated in court.
And so then there was a complaint made and you were arrested and you were interrogated for how long?
Altogether about 13 hours, three times.
And they were asking you about Christian teaching on sexuality?
Yes, it was an absurd situation. I was sitting in the police station. I had the Bible on the table, and the police was asking me that what is the message of the letter to Romans? What is about its first chapter? What do you mean by the concept of sin? and so on. It was about theological issues.
And the idea was that this was a hate crime under Finnish law.
Yes. I have never said anything which is hatred against any minority. I have said also in pamphlet, which is also investigated, that all people are equal. All are created as an image of God, and all people have dignity. But we are also all sinners, and it is God who says what is sin and what is not. And I have only said that it is against God's will to have sexual relationships outside the marriage, that the homosexual relationships are sin in front of God. And this was my so-called crime. And the prosecutor in court, she said that if you speak about sin, then you keep this person inferior to other people. But what I have said, it is about classical Christianity. And so I think that it is dangerous for the freedom of Christianity.
When you were the equivalent of Home Secretary, you were obviously in charge of the police and security within Finland. Would you have thought that this was the law at the time? Did you think when you put the tweet out that you could be breaking the law and do it anyway?
No, I couldn't think. And in fact, the other charge is about the pamphlet that I had written on already 2004. I never thought that I'm breaking a law or that it is hate speech. It was a total surprise for me, and of course I think that still that I have not committed any crime.
And you're being prosecuted again, which comes as a great surprise for an English audience.
Yes, even though that the police said that they didn't find any crime that before the first court session, and then I got a clear acquittal.
Look, I want to come to you because people can't break the law even if they don't like it. So the question is, do you think the law says this and that the law is wrong and therefore ought to be changed, or that the law is being wrongly applied?
Well, to the extent that the law would criminalise that type of behaviour, then I think the law is both being wrongly applied, but if it in fact does encompass this, and as Päivi has already said, 3 judges of the district court have found that it does not, then I think that would be an absurd proposition, and it would be contrary to Finland's obligations under international law, which require both at the European Convention level and at the United Nations Convention on Civil and Political Rights that freedom of religion is defended and protected, and free speech is protected.
But there are in the Bible some things, and some of my constituents have occasionally written to me quoting them, that are very unpleasant, that you wouldn't actually want to quote. So is the fact that it's in the Bible always a defence?
I think what we're talking about in the context of what Päivi was doing was communicating her beliefs publicly, both in the pamphlet that, as she mentioned, she wrote nearly 20 years ago now, and in a tweet directed at the leadership of her church. What the prosecution has claimed is that, as you saw, or as you introduced, that sometimes the Bible, and indeed they said the Quran and Mein Kampf, including all of these documents in the same context, generate hate and animosity towards minorities. But the difficulty with that is, and with all hate speech laws ultimately, is that you're criminalising somebody like Päivi for expressing something on the understanding that it creates an emotional response in a third person, not at all necessarily the audience for that communication. So
So what you're saying is hate speech has to be objectively generating hate rather than somebody dislikes it.
Well, that's the difficulty with it. And in the case of this prosecution...
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry to cut off that discussion, but thank you very much to Päivi and to Lorcan.